Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Big Area session on Generative AI. We're almost halfway through the show. I certainly have still some my energy, and I hope you all do as well. And by way of introductions, my name is Kritika Ganesamurthy. I lead the Global Partner Solutions Architecture team at AWS, and what that means is my team and I, we work with technology and consulting partners and help them build retail and CPG solutions on AWS. And today is we're going to have an exciting session. I'm joined by Mandeep Bhatia from Tapestry, Oscar Mullen from Mercado Libre, and Andrew Sun from NVIDIA. And we're going to be talking about how they've been leveraging generative AI to improve employee productivity and also just across the business. And I think you all will agree with me that when I say that generative AI has been one of the most transformative forces in technology we see today. I mean, just think about it. 2 years ago, if you all remember, we were in NRF and we were like, hey, what is generative AI? What are foundation models, right? So these were some of the questions that we were asking ourselves because we're so used to AI, machine learning, deep learning, and then comes generative AI and foundational models, and we're like, what is it? So 2023 was just more about, when we look at our customers, it was more about understanding what generative AI means and what does it mean for their business. And in 2024, what we've seen is it's actually been the year of production for some of our customers because they started to figure out, okay, now I understand what that is. I've done some POCs. Now let me go deeper, get into production, and start seeing value out of what generative AI is. And you're actually going to hear from both Mandeep and Oscar and what they've been actually doing for the last year and what results they've actually seen. And in 2025, what we think our customers are going to do is the year of business value. Now that they've done POCs and they've done few use cases, I think now it's more about how do I go deeper? What do I do? How can I leverage this across my business? So if you actually were at Doug Harrington, our CEO of Worldwide Amazon Stores yesterday, he actually mentioned that generative AI is pervasive across all of Amazon stores. There's not a single team that has not talked about generative AI or is incorporating generative AI. I think that's what 2025 and beyond is going to be like. And with that also comes about, okay, what does it mean in terms of compliance, right? You're getting a new technology in your system. So you have to think about compliance. You have to think about security, governance, and more importantly, responsible AI. So I think that's what, we are going to start seeing in 2025. And we're going to have some of those, where we're going to talk about it as well. And from a use cases perspective, you all know this, seeing use cases across customer experiences, conversational AI. Finally, when you're talking to a chatbot, you don't have to say agent right away. It's getting better and better now. I for sure like that fact. And then boosting employee productivity. You're going to hear more about that as we speak, which is code generation. We have Amazon Q for developers. We see a huge surge of excitement in our customer adoption in Q for business and Q for developers specifically. And then the last but not the least, optimizing your business process, product ideation. That's another area of interest that we see from retailers wanting to incorporate more generative AI. And so if you look at what, and again, I just want to also let you know that yesterday when Doug was talking, he was talking about other use cases in Amazon where we're using, and we're going to have a session later where we're going to talk about Rufus, which is our AI-powered chat assistant. And if you look at some of the use cases in Amazon, they're actually powered by our Amazon Noah foundational models. So what is Noah? It's a state-of-the-art frontier models. As you all know, the large language models, the frontier models. And so we have two different categories. We have the understanding models, and we also have the creative content generation. So if you look at the understanding models, you see 4. So the difference there is the context window and the modalities are different across. So context window is the size of your prompt, and then the modality is basically, okay, if you give a text as an input, so micro is just text as an output. But if you look at all other models like Pro, your Micro, Pro, and Premier, so they all are more sophisticated. And of course, Premier is one of our most sophisticated reasoning models we have on the market. And then, of course, the creative content is Canvas and Noah. Canvas and Reel. So Canvas is our image generation model. and Nova basically helps you create video generation. So if you happen to stop by our booth, we have a great demos on all of these capabilities. So you could just see it for yourself, what it can do. And yeah, so without further ado, let's just jump right into the session. So maybe we'll do a quick round of intros. Mandeep, do you want to start?
Yeah, hi. My name is Mandeep. I'm head of digital product innovation and platform technologies at Tapestry. Tapestry is a house of brands, Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman.
Hello, everyone. My name is Oscar Mullen. I work in Mercado Libre. Mercado Libre is the largest e-commerce, fintech, and logistic company in Latin America. And we have more than 120 million users in 18 different countries.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Sun. I lead global business development for the retail, QSR, and CPG industries for NVIDIA. Everything we do at NVIDIA is through partners, and we're excited to be here today with AWS. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mandeep, I know at Tapestry, you've experimented with generative AI and you have some use cases. Can you just talk about some of the use cases that you leverage generative AI and how did you select those to begin?
Yeah, I think most of us would agree here that when ChatGPT came, I mean, that was a game changer. And everybody was like, oh, generative AI, like that's the next big thing. We had been using AI, and as you all probably, many of you already have been using AI, even before ChatGPT, before generative AI, before foundation models, right? The recommendations, listings, search. And then we were actually using generative AI. We had a partner, we were working with a partner to generate different email headers, and we were testing them. And, so that was very much a generative AI. The game-changing thing was these models have now democratized that. Before, you would have to basically build your own model, and you would need like an army of data scientists to do it. So then we started looking at, okay, how could we use these models? How could we get ahead of it? And so we started looking at all kinds of use cases. Shopping assistant, came to, and I'm pretty sure, most of you have used Amazon Rufus, that's that kind of shopping assistant. We started looking at, could we give a tool to associates to improve their productivity? Product data enrichment, product copy, helping with SEO. So we scanned a lot of use cases that you had listed in the slide before that. And then we were like, what is it that is safest to test with, right? Because something is new, you want to make sure that, you don't want to harm it. Because if you try a technology and it creates some kind of backlash, it creates bad PR, it creates bad press, all of a sudden, you will be behind for many, many years, right? And so we looked at those use cases, and then we picked one use case, which is how do we capture our biggest power is in our associates. Our associates are very knowledgeable. They are interacting with customers all the time. They are a source of knowledge. So how do we basically gather all of that information and synthesize that? So we picked that use case to start with.
Sounds good. And so Mandeep, the other thing when generative AI came is like, how do you skill your workforce, right? Because you're skilling your tech workforce. Like, how do you upskill them? Because again, this is a new technology,
Yes.
and everybody was just grappling. So how did you overcome that?
It's an excellent question, right? And so, a little bit of our strategy and how we thought about it. We were like, okay, first we have an in-house data science team. And we have obviously product function and innovation function. And so how do you learn? Generally, how do you learn in life, right? You can either read a book, you can start playing yourself, and that will take a lot of time if you try it on your own, or you partner with someone. So we actually reached out to the AWS team, and we partnered with them and said, hey, like, this is what we want to do. Do you know how to do it? It's tongue in cheek, obviously, So we partnered with them, we put the use case in front of them, and we brought our data science team, and we worked together to start developing that model. And that's how we started our team started learning, our team started just playing with the technology, like prompts and all that is easy stuff, right? Easy meaning relatively easy, but then like really understanding the depth of the infrastructure which is needed, the how the models work, what AWS services, or how would we consume those models. So we started with Amazon AWS ProServe.
And now that you've deployed in production, like what are some results and outcomes that you're seeing from?
So I think I'm going to give you, cheesy answer, crawl, walk, run with these things. Like the biggest thing, like I've said in these things is responsible AI. So first our use case was not customer facing, right? It was just inward facing use case. We were getting all the feedback from associates, but the idea is to start small. So obviously we were, I'm taking the steps out from how you basically come up with a hypothesis, and we standard product management process, right? And if you don't know that, go hire some product managers or learn about that. So what is the hypothesis? What is the business value? We got alignment on that, and then after that, we trained the model, and after that, we started with, we enrolled enthusiasts, right? 1 store, 2 stores, and people who would like to participate into it, right? And then we worked with them to train it, to then test it with a few people, with a few regional managers. And then we went and tested it in a couple of stores. And that's how we started doing it. And then once we had confidence, rolled it to 10 stores, 20 stores, and then all of our stores. And the results have been, fantastic. We get a decent amount of feedback. The absolute numbers won't make any sense, but I'll give you an anecdote, an example, which will tell you what kind of impact that can have. Usually when you get feedback, right, you get feedback in surveys or it sits in some tools. And then what do? Some manager somewhere gets all the feedback, synthesizes that feedback, sends it to the manager above for approval, who sends it to the manager above for approval, and then it gets to the corporate. By the time from feedback to the time somebody gets the synthesis, and by the time you act on it, it can be 3 to 6 months, and the issue is irrelevant by then. So I'll give you a real example. So during holidays, we had rolled it out, and we were getting, a lot of associates started using it. They got enthused, and then they were like, the music is really bad in stores. And so it would synthesize that, and we actually then acted on that. And within 2 weeks, we were able to, based on that AI-generated summary of all the feedback, we saw that that was significant. And then we quickly were able to change the music. So I would say our associate engagement has gone up 10 to 15% because of that.
That's awesome. I think all of us being in retail, we know how difficult it is, to get feedback direct from the stores, act on it. Not just stores, even from customer service. I think that's a great example of, how do you get and act on it sooner before it's too late. And Oscar, coming to you, I know you've done within Mercado Libre a variety of use cases across, right? Can you talk us about what you've done?
Yes. So super interesting what you were mentioning. We went through similar things at Mercado Libre. We have a lot of Gen AI powered applications and agents running in production right now. I think that the most relevant one is the customer support that is actually taking care autonomously of a big percentage of our CX cases. One of the things we saw early on was that this kind of technology is something that we wanted all of our employees to be able to use, right? Like, we have a decent amount of engineers. We have 18,000 engineers, but we have 75,000 employees. So we wanted everyone to be able to create those things. And the key complexity lived in the technical details, like how do you do data pipelines, how you do retrieval augmented generation, what about context window, multimodality, all those kind of things are really technical and eventually complex for non-technical employees. So what we did, actually, we work on creating an agent creation platform that abstracts away all that complexity. So anyone can create an agent in our company just with plain English, writing some prompts. All that processing images, videos, doing RAG, doing evaluation, testing, rollout of the agent, and even understanding the output of the agent. Let's say I'm the agent and you complain because something arrived broken. So you start talking to me, I give you a solution after a discussion. So the agent is not just a chatbot, it's a chatbot plus backend solution. So everything that I, as the agent, talk with you and thought and reason through the whole process is stored as part of the context. So later on, we can use another agent or another LLM power solution to process all the reasoning, improve our CX process, but also improve the product that generated that the experience was not what was expected. So that kind of solution actually enable everyone in the company to create those kind of things.
That's the massive scale. You said 18,000 developers, 75,000 employees.
Yeah, 18,000 developers. Yeah, so.
That's massive. And so this way, you're basically democratizing AI across the company. So you're making anybody, so they don't have to be a developer to be able to start leveraging the data and building applications on top of that.
Exactly. One of the things we spent like 1 year building this, and we keep evolving it. And one of the things that we are really focusing is on simplicity, right? One of the things that I hear a lot is that writing prompts is easy. I don't agree, right? I mean, writing average prompts is easy. Writing good prompts is not that easy. So making sure that we have synthesized examples and things that people can actually use, copy, and work from is super important. And as part of that, the platform needs to be very slick so people can actually focus on iterating the prompts as many times as needed. So, because then you have all of these responsible AI issues and hallucinations and things that you actually want to keep under control, right?
It's awesome. And so Andrew, coming to you, we've heard Mandeep and Oscar, of course, talk about different use cases and, of course, the platform. And you at NVIDIA, I'm sure you're talking to a lot of customers in retail. Can you talk us about what you're seeing from your interactions with retailers and how they're, adopting generative AI across the business?
Yeah, so thanks, Krithika. First of all, congrats, guys. It's awesome to see retailers at different parts of the journey. Getting started, starting to learn, scaling agentic AI already is an amazing feat. We at NVIDIA do work with, all the leading retailers. And I would say at this point in the market, there's probably two kind of mega patterns as you're starting to go from POC to production. One is retailers are starting to ask themselves, how do I scale my token costs, right? AI is here to stay. I want to get more and more AI workloads to transform my business, to improve customer experience, to improve associate experience. But that means more tokens need to be generated, which increase my costs. And so that's where accelerated computing, GPUs plus software from NVIDIA that's available and through the infrastructure of AWS can really help lower the marginal cost of doing AI. And it does so in a really dramatic fashion. So an example on the consumer side of the business is Amazon.com, right? Amazon.com uses NVIDIA software to reinvent and use generative AI for product listings and catalog enrichment so that sellers that onboard have a really simple experience putting their information into the catalog. And then that also improves product pages for customers that are shopping. This is a consumer experience, but it has resulted with our accelerated compute in 3 times speed up and 2x cost savings. So as more and more retailers are trying to move workloads and scale AI, they really need accelerated computing to help them lower that marginal cost so they can keep doing more. The other thing that I'll mention is that a lot of the head of retail is really starting to ask the question of who owns my intelligence? Right? Every brand exists because of the work that everyone that's ever worked at your company has put in. And that is the source of the intelligence, right? That's powering AI. And so while many companies have started and they use great models to get started, we love all the models in the market. They're obviously built with NVIDIA technology. There is an evolution where strategically companies are saying, parts of my catalog or part of my workflow or part of the knowledge of my employees, I'm okay with putting in a closed model. But it does leave my environment and it can be used by other people in my industry. So you're starting to see people actually bifurcate into more hybrid use cases where they're using managed services, but they're also taking advantage of open source models. Everything's being democratized, and you can basically access, the latest open source models and train it with your first party data and own your own IP. These are kind of important steps, both in terms of business cost as well as strategy that we're seeing in the market.
So a lot of governance around the data, building applications, who owns, and yeah.
Yeah, just being really thoughtful about, how to move, learn, and then apply and understand what is so sacred to your company, right? As you move into AI.
And Andrew, you were talking about cost. Oscar, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about, because you're the scale that you talked about, 18,000 developers, 75,000 employees, and you're democratizing AI. So I'm sure you're thinking about cost and infrastructure costs as you roll it out, right? So just talk us a little bit about how you're thinking about managing the costs.
Yeah. So right now, the value that we get out of Gen AI is so high and the models evolve so fast that for many, the cost is not a concern right now. However, as you scale and grow, it quickly becomes a problem. So one of the things that is pretty complex is calculate how many tokens you need to process an image. I don't know if you analyze that, but it depends on whether it's HD or SD and so many other different things. So in the end, what we built on top of our platform, so our agents are groups of nodes that orchestrate internally. So with one line in the definition of the agent, you can specify each node which LLM should use. And in that way, if you have a consensus node that needs to understand the correct answer, you can use a frontier model with a lot of reasoning. However, if you need to translate something, probably you are good with a smaller model, so it's way, way cheaper. So that's one way. And the other way we are thinking about cost is we are investing in research in prompt translation. Like feeding one LLM with a prompt that was crafted and tested for a different LLM usually don't get you the same type of results or with the same quality. So we are working hard on evals and testing, so we end up having automatic prompt translation. So if we think that some model would be cheaper and still you will get good results, or in case of lack of reliability, let's say your provider goes down and you don't have the model anymore, so what do? Instead of failing, you can translate on the fly based on a pre-compute evaluation and then talk to a different model.
Yeah, it's actually very impressive. I'm sure you all agree. Given the amount of time we've had this in place and the platform that you've built, the amount of time, I think it's truly impressive. And I think I have to ask Andrew this question. When we think about NVIDIA, we all think it's hardware, but then you talked a lot about infrastructure, the frameworks. Can you just talk to us about what is NVIDIA? Software, hardware, frameworks, what do you have in place?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. People tend to connotate us with GPUs and our gaming heritage, and that's absolutely a fundamental part of our history. But what NVIDIA actually is an accelerated computing company, and that means it's actually full stack optimization. So we do hardware and we do software. So today at NVIDIA, we have our own GPUs, which you read about all the time in the press. We have our own CPUs, we have networking, we have every layer of the stack that has been purposefully built and designed to solve the world's hardest problems, which includes AI. And so system-level software, CUDA for developers that makes all of our GPUs programmable. This is a lot of detail sometimes for retail. And so when you work your way all the way to the top of the stack, the simplest way to think about it is if you want to harness the power of what NVIDIA offers today in our industry, we bundle the vast majority of our application framework. So whether you're working on data science, whether you're working on speech AI, whether you're working on generative AI, the vast majority of our application tools and acceleration libraries for developers are just available in one piece of software that's sold on the AWS marketplace. It's called NVIDIA AI Enterprise. It's really easy to use. It's wonderful in the sense that you can basically use your existing cloud commit. So you basically take your CapEx and start using it as OpEx. There's no need to kind of go back to the well and ask for additional investment. You can get started on AI and use NVIDIA technology today. One of the hallmarks of what we're offering in generative AI that I'll talk about today is a piece of software that I think is quite unique. It's called NIMS. NVIDIA NIMS stands for NeMo Inference Microservices, which is in tech talk, it's a very simple way. It's an API that you can point to, but underneath it's a container that has all the best of NVIDIA technology running underneath it. Why is this important? Well, in retail, most of retail, your developers are incredibly precious resources, right? It's a hard business to run. Everything's changing in terms of the assortment you need to find and get to your customers. And just staying on top of that is a Herculean task. You look at the pace of the market today when it comes to AI. Amazon Nova Foundation models, incredible feat, incredible technology. I feel like there are developers in retail that are like, I just was understanding what, OpenAI 4.0 was, and now Nova came out. And so it's a lot of proliferation happening very quickly. Well, NVIDIA NIMS are a piece of software where in that container, NVIDIA helps optimize and accelerate all the latest and greatest open source models for you. And so this allows developers to stay focused on just building great applications for your customers, for your associates. And then we take sort of the hard work out of that, given the fact that most of the AI community is all building on our hardware and our software. So we can constantly tune and accelerate and optimize, and we provide support. And all of that provides both performance and cost savings as you go down your AI journey.
That's pretty great, yeah. And Mandeep, coming over to you, we've initially, when we talked about what is in 2025, the year where everybody wants to go deep, that also means thinking more about compliance, governance, and security and responsible AI. And you, in your introduction, you just spoke about what Tapestry is doing. So how are you thinking about responsible AI as you go deeper in 2025 and extend your use cases?
So I just talk a little bit about what Andrew was talking about. I mean, unlike the people who actually use CUDA to develop, program their GPUs and stuff like that, I had no idea that NVIDIA was into software as well. So we were on a call and, doing prep for it. And I'm just wondering, I'm like, what is this guy doing here? Like, they're hardware.
Now you know. Now the whole room knows.
Everyone knows, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it's interesting to learn more about that world and what you can do. But talking about responsible AI a little bit, I think that is the most important aspect of it. Pretty much everyone, and if you want this to be adopted into your organization and for your customers, people do need to understand what responsible AI is. And it's not just the IT departments which need to understand it. It is the business people, the product managers, the marketing departments and finance, like whoever is using it, like they need to understand what that is. And so in a nutshell, if I was to say what is responsible AI, like there is the transparency aspect of it. Why is it summarizing or classifying it in a certain way? Accountable, like who is accountable for this? Hopefully it's not toxic. Like, I'm not going to name any names, but I mean, if you were following this field, there was a big company, a hyperscaler, and their model was generating images which was in a completely different, like somebody asked it to generate an image of first president of United States, and it would generate it in a completely different race, and it created a lot of problems, right? So safety, toxicity. Like you need to understand that it is generating content and you need to make sure it's not hallucinating. It is giving responses which are safe, secure. And so you need to learn about that. Initially, it's all manual for us, right? Starts from the training data, making sure that our training data has enough variety and stuff like that. Even before that, understanding what it is, then understanding what training data we are using, then understanding who is testing it, how are we validating it, and then now all the frameworks which are there like Amazon Bedrock and all of those, they are coming up with guardrails. So you need to figure out how to use those guardrails to make sure the output that is being produced, it is following those tenets basically.
I think it's very, very critical because, again, our use cases span beyond not just internal, but external customer facing. I mean, just walk around and there's so many booths talking about, and when we in Amazon, if you just go to our AWS booth, we talk about content creation, marketing, email. So governance and responsible AI is going to play a huge factor in how we actually leverage generative AI across our use cases and, run a business.
I think one thing to maybe jump in real quick is absolutely, you want to be thoughtful because your brand is ultimately what you're protecting. At the same time, the market is moving so quickly. And so, Mandeep, you talked about ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT, it hit 100 million users in 2 months, right? It's the fastest consumer application to hit 100 million users, faster than social media. So on one hand, you need governance. On the other hand, the reality is your employees, they're also consumers. They're using this stuff every day, right? So it's important to make sure you're making forward progress and pushing towards enabling what is effectively becoming a very new habit.
Thank you. And, as we look into 2025, we've all talked about what you've done before and how you've done POCs, scaled, and thinking about the future. What is in store for 2025? I think I'm going to ask the three of you the question. So, Mandeep, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, if there is one takeaway from all of this, I'll say that if you want to learn more about it, first go watch on YouTube the CES keynote by Jensen Huang. I think the picture that he painted, I was watching that 2 hours. I could not, just get up from my seat. I was like, okay, this is the world which is coming. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's time that you're going to invest very, very well because that is the future where it's coming to. Yeah, it's the keynote from CES by Jensen Huang. And if you have not seen it, go see it. Like that 2 hours paints the picture of what the future is. That future may take 4 years, 5 years, but the AI is not a hype. We are using it. There are so many companies which are using it, right? And we are talking about generative AI and then tomorrow agentic, right? Where there are going to be agents who are going to think on your behalf. And then beyond that is physical AI. So that's one takeaway. Just go watch it and then you'll believe it, what is happening. And there are companies which are working on it.
I promise I didn't promise to buy him dinner for saying that and plugging that.
Yeah. So I was like blown away. So go watch it. That's one takeaway basically. Now my second thing is there isn't, and I've said this before, if you're not adopting this technology, you are leaving money on the table. So it's like saying, I do not like money. That's how it is. Like you should be asking people, like you don't like money, that because here is what's going to happen. There are two scenarios which are going to happen. Scenario number one is where the earnings are going to grow and you're going to get a lot of capex to play with this, right? And the second scenario is, and I'm not a futurist, I don't know what's going to happen, but the second scenario very much could be that, there could be a recession, right? Or the earnings may go down and stuff like that. And your CFO is going to wake up and the CFOs are going to say, I need 20% cost reduction. And this technology is going to can deliver both growth and can deliver cost efficiency both, right? I don't know. I mean, I think it was a real article where I read that Salesforce is saying they are not going to hire software developers anymore in 2025. Klarna is saying that they are saving a lot of money in customer service agents because now these agents can handle all of that stuff. So if we are not looking at this, you have your head in the sand basically. So I hope I'm not offending anyone. So just go see it. Number one. Number two, I think just start playing, just like what we did. And like I have a mandate for my team that they need to learn how to use AI to do things faster, 10% faster, 15% faster. And we are incentivizing simple incentives, right? Simple recognitions, but figure out ways how to use AI to do your job better. And so get familiar with it. And I will say this, it's not scary. Prompts are going to be easier. You know why? Because the models are going to get smarter. So you don't need special skills. Yes, a little bit here and there, but you can learn those in a few days. And don't let anybody dissuade you from that. Learn that, play with that. The more you play with that, the better you will get at that. That's my takeaways from this.
I love the fact that, don't leave money. So it's a good advice. I think even Doug Harrington mentioned yesterday that, he has his office hours every 2 weeks where, he's just learning about what we're doing across the Amazon stores on generative AI. So so as Mandeep said, I think this tech is definitely going to transform the way we live and do our business. So, all right. Thanks, Mandeep. Oscar?
Well, I think upskilling the workforce is very important. Many of the things Mandeep was mentioning. I also think that fine-tuning is going to keep playing a more and more important role every time. There are some discussions whether we already consume all the data that's available and whether synthetic data are actually moving the LLMs forward at the same pace. But many of you, like us, have a lot of data of your products, of your listings, of your customers. So you can actually make a significant difference by fine-tuning the models, not only in terms of cost, but also in terms of accuracy, recall, and all that stuff. So I think that's something that's coming. Also, we particularly are working a lot on multimodality, and we're doing interesting research on video. We are actually doing some proof of concept with Amazon Reel, and we are getting interesting results. So I think that something that's going to happen in 2025, 2026 is that Gen AI is going to be in much more places of our daily lives, not just chatbots. So I think it's important that we all let that message get to our companies, to our C-levels, to our employees, so we are all on the same page and we can move the boat in the right direction.
I think, as you both said, just the workforce and the changes, I think it's just going to change the way we do our business more efficiently, right? I mean, I think that's the fundamental truth that with all these technologies.
And one thing I forgot to mention, and I think it's important as it applies to many of us, I think robotics is something that is definitely going to change significantly next year. So I think that's something, and the application of Gen AI on robotics. So I think that's another space that as retailers, it makes sense to review.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know, Oscar, you were also talking about how with all this technology, your team is becoming more autopilot,
Yes, I mean, one of the things we like to discuss is we don't really love the concept of co-pilot. We like more the concept of autopilot. I mean, we the humans are still the pilots, like in a plane. The autopilot lights the boring part all across the ocean, but when it's time to land, it engage the human. So basically, we want all of these solutions to do all the boring stuff and work on autopilot and be completely autonomous without involving human for decisions that doesn't make sense. But then when it's time to land, or we have a very critical situation, then human in the loop is still very important. So we don't really love the idea of framing this as a co-pilot or something that is by your side. And so basically we want to frame this as The agents are going to do a lot of the work by themselves, and when they don't know or when it's dangerous or when you are identifying probably something that is toxic, then it's going to involve the human, but looking at it from a different perspective.
I think that's where the governance and your guardrails come in place, right? So as long as you have all of those frameworks put in place, then we can truly be the autopilot. You can make your your team, your business be more autopilots than co-pilots. So Andrew.
Yeah. So thank you, Monty, for the generous Jensen plug. So physical AI obviously is going to be transformative. Monty mentioned the CES keynote. Also, Azita Martin, who runs our retail business, gave the NRF keynote, and you hopefully heard more about that. For 2025 specifically, one of the things that's really exciting is just this evolution into agents, into agentic AI, right? This autopilot is going to be remarkable for our industry, because I think if anyone that's ever worked in a store knows, no one ever feels like you have enough time to do the very manual work of moving a box off a truck, making sure it's unpacked, getting it onto the right shelf at the right price, serving the customer. I mean, it is a tough business. And so when you go from the leap from generative to agentic, you're really talking about an artificial intelligence leap where the scaling of intelligence and the scaling of compute are both going to climb. Oscar talked about this, right? Which is these agents are capable of long thinking. They can break down the solution to a problem into multiple steps and mimic human reasoning. And this is going to be great because then at each step you have transparency, and then you can have multiple questions, multiple agents kind of working with each other. And that's going to bring great relief to what is a very manual business often, especially in omnichannel.
That's where the multimodal agents come in place, right? I mean, going across workflows. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think wherever you are on your journey, if you're just starting to learn with text, great. But I think multimodal obviously adds dimensions that can be incredible to accelerate and simplify what is, a hard job. And often you're also dealing with, high turnover in this business. So how do you make these agents so good that you can reduce the time to train a new employee or help your best employee increase their productivity, by several multiples?
Yeah. I think this conversation was very insightful. I know we are almost up time. I think I learned quite a bit about how both of you, and of course, Andrew, your perspective from NVIDIA. I think some of the takeaways, again, I'm going to repeat what Mandeep said. Don't leave the money. Start skilling your workforce on generative AI. And then Oscar's message, which is, again, they don't see them as co-pilots, but more autopilot. And that also means building the governance and guardrails around it. And Andrew, as Andrew was closing, talking about more agentic AI, and where you have more multimodal agents, which is where they're capable of doing more than one task, which means giving them access to your enterprise systems to go do a workflow end to end. And then, of course, it's not completely autopilot. Of course, that's where you have the guardrails in place and you have this human checks in place to make sure that, they are performing the way they are supposed to be. So anyway, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for all your insights.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kritika.
And
Thank you,
again,
everyone.
thanks for joining us.